Check it out, guys. We got a 2002 BMW M5. This is the E39 generation, owned by Mark. Mark is the man out here in Raleigh, North Carolina. The main mods you need to know: Eisenman race mufflers, ground control coilovers, stock brakes though, important to note because a lot of people don't like the brakes and they swap out the master cylinder from the E65, but this one is stock. He's lightened the flywheel, also did some like plastic tubing changes to improve airflow. And this E39, it was produced 1998 to 2003. The facelift was done in 2001. He was explaining that there's a slight difference in the engine. So pre-facelift actually made more power. It had greater clearances. It actually burned more oil. And he was explaining the post-facelift. This is the first year of the post-facelift, the 2002. It has tighter clearances, does not burn oil, but makes like 10 horsepower less. I mean, it's still a naturally aspirated 5-liter V8 that's making 400 horsepower. The first time they did not have an inline 6 in an M5, and the first time they actually added variable valve timing to the M5. Looking at the interior, Mark did a stupendous job, maintaining and restoring this vehicle. It has close to 200,000 miles, and the interior just looks fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, I think this is called poplar wood, if I'm not mistaken. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Really interesting. This bright color to it as well, contrasting with this black leather. He replaced the wheel, he did some seat covers. I mean, he's done a really great job here. The first M5 with an infotainment system as well. Also the first time they got buttons on the wheel. Ain't that something? Welcome to the modern age, for better and for worse. We just drove a stock E39. This one is lightly modified. OEM plus, very much, is the case. Power adjustable telescoping wheel, gotta love that. And he also has a lighter flywheel. This was the M5 I think a lot of us fell in love with growing up. Partially because it just looks so cool, looks so menacing. And maybe partially also because of the hire that little mini-series BMW put out with Clive Owen, seeing Madonna get tossed around in the rear seat as he drifts it around. Such a classic. I'm not sure if he's modified the shifter in some way or just restored it, but it's feeling nice and tight. More so than the other E39 that I was driving earlier today. Tight, notchy, very discreet gates. I actually kind of like this. For what this car is designed to do, I think they knocked it out of the park. This car is so cool, that engine really being the highlight here. And the steering always impresses me because it's actually hydraulically assisted with servotronics, so they can actually adjust the level of assistance, but it's recirculating ball, it's not rack and pinion. And while this is of course not the best steering in the world by any means, I think they did a great job with that limitation. And the reason they had the limitation was just, size and packaging constraints. The V8, too large. The lower trims of the E39 did have rack and pinion, but their M5 with the V8, and even I think it was the 540i as well, they just couldn't fit it. I really love this interior, just the contrast and how bright this wood is. Super unique. I love that about it. Now that we got a clear road. 7,000 RPM redline. Dude, this thing hauls some serious booty. Even today it hauls some serious ass. But imagine this 20 years ago. Yeah, the brakes do have a bit of sponginess, and the initial travel also, I wish it had more bite. And it wasn't as vague as you pushed into it. Such a badass executive saloon. I like what he's done with the coilovers because the car definitely feels sharper than the stock example I just drove. Yet it's compliant enough to still be comfortable. I'm feeling much more texture of the road. I'm feeling the car feeling more planted and more confident mid-corner. I mean, granted, these are higher speed sweepers, constant radius, not you know, tight technical stuff. But I think the ground control, but I think the coilovers were definitely the right move. This M5 also feels a bit quicker than the other example I drove. I love OEM Plus builds because you're still getting the essence of the car, but the things that could use a little bit of improvement from OEM, maybe budgetary constraints, maybe some other reason for why they didn't do things a certain way, you dial those things in and the car just, it just begins to feel even more right, if that makes sense. Probably not the most eloquent right now. It's been a long day. We've been reviewing cars since 9 a.m. So please bear with me. Ooh, that Aston Martin V8 Vantage! Driven by Fenton's son from the Zygreen YouTube channel. Go show him some love. I love that car. I'm enamored with that car. Springiness to that throttle pedal when I heel toe it and get my heel to slide off. It's kind of loud. Traction control kicking in very aggressively. Let's get some of these settings dialed in. I think I should turn this monitor off, but it's not touchscreen. Just gotta do that. Boom. There you go. Really sensitive throttle in a good way. It actually feels a little bit sportier than the rest of the car. I wonder, you know, how much of that is aftermarket versus stock. I'm trying to remember the E39 I was driving earlier today, and I think this is a little bit more responsive than that. For a car that's over 20 years old, it's actually quite impressive. And part of that is, of course, Mark restoring the vehicle. Part of it would be his modifications. I think he's done some really tasteful OEM Plus modifications. But also, just BMW did a great job engineering the vehicle. It feels solid, it feels planted, it inspires confidence as you push it. It's definitely one of those Autobahn missiles. In this configuration, obviously more confidence inspiring than completely stock, with what he's done with suspension and on and on. You know, coming into this, I had high expectations for the E39 M5. This is my first time driving it today, both the stock version and this OEM Plus version, and I had pretty high expectations, and it's lived up to it. It's a pretty dope car. The styling, the engine, the way it drives. I think this is largely BMW at their peak in the 90s and the early aughts. The E60 that came after this had an even more glorious engine, naturally aspirated V10. But between this and that, probably my two favorite M5s. The later generations, they got a little bit floaty, a little bit too heavy. This one is still no lightweight, coming around 3,900 pounds. But it feels far more connected and a pleasure to drive, whereas the newer ones, I say that while they're far more capable from a performance perspective, some of the magic of the BMW driving experience is lost, and they can feel a little bit vague, even mid-corner. You know, it's really comfortable, it's really cush, but you get that floatiness, and it doesn't inspire confidence in the same way that this car does, or that the E60 can. This thing's a little monster. My friends, let me know what you think of the E39 M5. I think Mark did a great job actually modifying this, but I'm curious, would you guys do anything different? Anything that you think would bring out more of the character of the M5? This is a really excellent example, in my opinion, and even more impressive considering its mileage. My friends, you can watch me compare this to all the other M5s on our M5 playlist linked below. Let me know your thoughts, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want your car reviewed on Jabal & Cars, visit us on jabalandcars.com, fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in the next one.